meaning how it is to walk around and all of the facilities you encounter and that you use to help you navigate the downtown and the plant area in general. And we collected an additional 40 comments about those. But today, I just wanted to start off this activity by showing you where lighting was sort of the most popular thing people felt they needed more of in Friendship Heights, street lighting. And you can see, for instance, that Willard Avenue, people felt was underlit and a little bit on North Park. And in terms of additional protected crossings, it was along the end of Willard as you're getting to Willard Avenue Neighborhood Park and perhaps one along Friendship Boulevard. A protected crossing is a street crossing that is more than just a crosswalk. So there's a stop sign or even a pedestrian signal like the one in the middle of Wisconsin that's sort of opposite the plaza with the Starbucks. That's what we call a pedestrian hawk signal, right? That the pedestrians can control how that goes, or a regular traffic signal like you have at any intersection. Those are all considered protected crossings in the sense that there's something stopping the traffic besides just the person standing at that crosswalk waiting for the traffic to stop. So we do have a lot of protected crossings in Friendship Heights, but it is a place where people walk quite a bit. So that was something we wanted to make sure, like, are those in the right place today? Are there places where there should be more of them? And the same thing with the benches in the public right of way. There are a lot of benches on Wisconsin, but not really on most other streets. And we were curious if people feel like that's working out and maybe there should be more. So we're going to go through and just have a quick chat about those three elements, and then people can put anything else they want, share anything else they want about an intersection or a part of the sidewalk or something else that you struggle with as a pedestrian in Friendship Heights that you hope this sector plan can address. So the first off is I wanted to focus on the street lighting because that's something that we got the most comments about. There was some people who came and they asked for street lighting along the edge of the Geico property. That's not typically a place where you would find street lighting unless there was a street there. But every other comment was along a street in a place that, it would be a place that you would want to have well lit. So happy to hear folks who feel comfortable going in. Go ahead. You can go in and put a thumbs up or add, a comment saying, where you would like more lighting. You can put Post-it notes anywhere along the sides of the board, or you can just go on off mute and let us know if there's anywhere else you think that there should be street lighting, or if you agree or disagree with where the people put it 2 weeks ago. We actually had quite a lot of stickers on Willard. This is like a cleaned up version. We probably had 40 different stickers on Willard. So we know that is a dark street at night, and we hear that.
Hi, it's David Baratz again. Sorry, I'm on an iPhone, so it's kind of tricky to do things. I think I accidentally drew a crazy blue line there.
Okay.
But one of the areas that I was going to suggest as a pedestrian controlled crossing is that on Park Avenue off of Willard, sort of where it has that little bit of a dog leg into the park area there's a lamp icon right now. And just to have it as a crossing, because that's a bit of a blind spot. We actually, it's to the left there. It's the one
down to the left. To the left.
That one
right
there.
Yep, I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Where the new park is coming in, cars just come around that corner, and if you're trying to cross over, it's a bit of a blind spot for cars coming through. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else want to talk about crossing or some street lighting? See some people writing things in, which is great. I'd be curious to hear if people agree with the crossing that people indicated here on a more protected crossing on Willard at the end. There's 2 locations. Probably can't have both of those. So I'm curious to know if people have feel more strongly about one or the other of those. Usually those are too close together to have both be protected, but I think it does seem like a part of the street that needs an additional crossing. I agree with that. If anyone has any thoughts on that, I would love to get some clarification there. And I'm also curious about the Friendship Boulevard one. If people feel that jives with the way they navigate Friendship Heights. I see people put some Post-it notes in, but they didn't write anything. If you had something that you wanted to write on there, you can put it in the chat and we'll add it.
Tara,
Yes.
those little, this is Karen, the little red, those are supposed to be protected crossing suggestions in the future.
No, the
Like
orange circle stickers here. Can you zoom in a bit, Vivi? And I'm going to show.
orange circle
There's like little
stickers.
stickers right there. Those, do you see there's like a
Can
little
you
orange
can you use a
circle?
pointer
Vivi,
and
can you
show?
point one? Point to the ones on Willard. Do you see how there's a little guy crossing the street? She's circling it on the screen right now.
Hold on. Oh, okay.
So the red is just, we were showing in this map all the different kinds of crosswalks in Friendship Heights. And so I think people who live in the village are probably familiar that the village-owned streets have brick crosswalks, while the rest of Friendship Heights has what we call a high visibility crosswalk, which is actually kind of preferred from a safety perspective, although it's not as pretty. And so we were just wanted to highlight there are different types of crosswalks in case people wanted to talk to us about the crosswalks. It's an interesting feature because typically, on a county street, you're always going to get a high visibility one. The county's tried hard to update as most of the county to get those high visibility ones, but inside a village like Friendship Heights, where they manage their own streets, you might get different kinds of crosswalks, like the brick ones that are there today. Somebody here must have something to say about walking around Friendship Heights. We had like 60 comments at the in-person one. So we
It's
love to hear anything. Yeah.
it's sort of difficult to know what to say. I did a little of this in Chevy Chase West because like Wisconsin Avenue is state highway.
That's
Um,
okay. They're involved in this plan too. We meet with them on a
okay.
monthly basis. So
Okay.
we make recommendations about state highway roads all the time
Okay.
in sector plans. So go ahead.
Well, like just I think everything around like the Village Plaza, like you walk up from there and cross the street to go to the stores on the far side of the street. So, there's already a traffic light and all of that, but you still feel like a fourth class citizen there. Like you have to, it's hard to cross the street. It's even though there's lights, you still feel like the cars are the priority. And there's so many elders and I, as planners, I don't know if you all have a way. I guess I feel like even with what's there, I still feel like I could get run over.
No, that's a perfectly valid way to feel, and that's the kind of feedback that's helpful. Because I think there are a lot of crossings on Wisconsin, but it still can feel sort of scary as a pedestrian. And if I'm hearing you correctly,
Yeah, because at
that's what
that
I'm
at that
hearing.
crosswalk, it's like, Wisconsin turns left onto South Park. South Park turns left onto Wisconsin. There's
Hmm.
just every which way. And as a pedestrian, you feel very much of an afterthought.
I hear that. Thank you for sharing.
Just to confirm, is that the right spot you're talking about where I put that post-it note?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Anyone else want to share anything about their experience walking on any of the streets? I saw in the chat. Thank you for sharing about the Willard crossing, and that you feel the one that's closer to River Road in the park would be more useful. Appreciate that insight. If nobody else has anything else to contribute here, we will move on to this next activity, which
So I have,
is,
sorry,
yes, oh,
I
good,
have
go.
one
Great.
one more question, David
Yes,
Barrett.
please.
And again, this may be related to the Geico discussion earlier, but I'm curious whether if there's anything in terms of pedestrian access through Geico or how it's going to be parsed up as part of the future, that there could be either more roads or pedestrian access through that section of the sector.
Sure. So that, I think that's totally something that the sector plan is hoping to have an opinion about. We would love to hear your thoughts on that. The approved plan right now, the one they're trying to extend the validity for, shows a vehicle road that goes through Geico from Friendship and from Willard. So it doesn't go through to Brookdale. There is no vehicle connection there at all. It just comes in Friendship and goes through the site and goes off Willard. That's what's approved, but we're taking a wholesale look at this in our sector plan, and I think there's would be a lot of value to pedestrian connections through that site, thus connecting sort of the Brookdale side of things with the rest of the downtown. But that's something we would love to hear about. So you sort of asked the question, but you didn't offer an opinion. If you have an opinion, we would love to hear it before we move to the next activity. Do you have any thoughts, David? You're saying you were asking, do we know anything yet? We don't. So what would you like to see?
As a resident of the Brookdale neighborhood, I would love to have sort of more pedestrian related pathways to get to Willard and or up to Friendship Heights, like the downtown area, I guess they call it. But I certainly would like to avoid opening up any of the like dead end roads. I live on one of them, so that it becomes a driving road that connects to Willard. More pedestrian, not automotive. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, because we only have in this room until 8:20 something, I think we are going to move to the next activity. You can still put things in the chat about anything you want. Okay, so we are going to take a quick walk down Wisconsin, and we're going to make 5 stops. And this is just a key map to show you where our 5 stops are. We're going to start at the Bloomingdale's Plaza and move. This is Wisconsin, but I oriented it not north-south. I oriented it long because it fits on the page better. But DC is on the right, and that's Western, making the diagonal right by the 1. So we're looking at it. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then go up to Saks on the other side of the street, and then talk about the collection. So let's go to stop number 1. So the first question is about the Bloomingdale's Plaza, and you can zoom in so we can see the images. Vivi, thank you. Bloomingdale's Plaza. It's a very large space, and there is a lot of stuff in there. But our question for everyone is, like, does anybody use this plaza? I mean, we have been to Friendship Heights a million times, and unless there's a scheduled event there, we only see a handful of people here, and we really want to hear if that's the correct interpretation of this plaza, or if people are using it at times when we just haven't been there. So curious to know if people think this plaza is working for what it is, or if there are things that could be done to improve it. There are some like inspirational images on the right, but I don't even need to really talk about those. I really just want to hear about what you think about this plaza, and if it's sort of doing anything for Friendship Heights, and if there are things you think could be changed. When we did this activity in the room at the Wisconsin Place Rec Center, we gave people some additional prompts to help them, which was sort of like things that can activate public spaces, such as more active shade structures or different kinds of seating groups, as opposed to all these like Adirondack chairs facing out. Retail kiosks, which this plaza is certainly big enough for. You see that in the bottom right. Public art, things like that. So those were just like ideas to spark people to get started, but people left us dozens and dozens of comments. So curious to hear if anybody here ever spends any time there other than when they're just crossing the plaza to get to the metro or similar. And we'll just wait for a few minutes. We got one comment in the chat, and would love to see more comments in the chat, or people can come off mute and let us know what they think about this plaza. Okay, we have one request for an ice cream store. Any which is, When would you not want an ice cream store? Um,
I
any other
never,
thoughts about
I
this
never
plaza?
use it. It's Karen again. I never use it. It is absolutely just a cut through. I don't know if it's because the stuff in the middle. I mean, it's interesting because even in the Westbard rebuild, I don't know if you've been over there,
Mhm.
they put a tiny little plaza, and already people are using it. They have cornhole games and a few chairs, and people are using it. This is just doesn't feel inviting. There was once a big art fair, which is what you were talking about. There was an event, then there were a lot of people, but mostly there's nothing to draw you to it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's been our experience. But we've maybe been to Friendship Heights over the course of the last few months a dozen times, and you guys spend much more time there. So I always want to wonder, like, is stuff happening here when we're not here? Um,
But I think in general, the lack of events, like, that there's just no events. There's like nowhere to go to for something. And maybe that's why so many people voted for a stage. Like the Western Grove Park,
mhm,
there's enough space, but you barely know it's there. That linear park along the
mhm,
back of the parking is just a walkway. And when and you're not walking, if you're on the sidewalk on Western there,
yeah,
you barely know it's there. Like if there were concert series or it was more open. I mean, there's intentionally, I suppose, no parking or I don't know. There's nowhere, you don't feel like going anywhere. In all of Friendship Heights, there's nowhere to go. Like nothing that you say to yourself, except maybe the fountain, and that barely cuts it. But, when you go, oh, I'll go outside. For what?
well, that was very helpful. Thank you for sharing. I see some people put some other questions in, calling the space dead and not easy to walk through. There is a lot of stuff in it now, but it is not necessarily arranged in a welcoming way, I guess. And it's interesting because there is, um, yes, I mean, there's a lot of space here for a lot of different things that could happen. So thank you for all these comments. And Phoebe's going to keep capturing them. And then in a second, we're going to go to our next stop because we have to get through 5 stops. Um, but again, you can always put comments about us if you're like, oh, now I thought about something to share about Bloomingdale's Plaza. You can still put that in the chat. We will capture every single thing that happens in this meeting, and we will eventually, as I'll say at the end of this, be packaging it together in a way that people can see, key takeaways and some of these comments. So Vivi, when you're ready, let's just slide over to stop 2. This is going to be a quicker one, but it's something I've been wondering about as we walk around Friendship Heights. On Wisconsin, right near the metro, right outside, if you can zoom into that, to the Bloomingdale's Plaza, there are these pairs of benches that are like nicely designed into the streetscape. I barely see anybody ever sit on them. And there aren't, while Wisconsin does have some areas with seating, you don't find this kind of public seating sort of anywhere else in Friendship Heights, which made me wonder, are there other places that would probably be a better match for benches like this? Is it something that people wish they had? And does anybody ever sit in these benches that are right on Wisconsin near the metro? And we mostly had people, I'll just share, on June 11th, tell us that these benches they don't use and then they wish the benches were elsewhere. And some people gave us examples. And we only had 1 or 2 people say that they've ever sat here. And it's just
These
something,
paired
I wonder
benches.
every time we walk up from the metro into Friendship Heights.
Mhm.
Um, and benches in the right of way is one thing that we sometimes think about in a sector plan. So just curious if anybody had any reaction to that.
Um, I'm sort of trying to listen and get ready. Hmm?
Anybody have any thoughts? You've sat here, you've not sat here, you've never thought about it. I'm going to go with because no one cares about these benches. No one's passionately sitting there as opposed to Bloomingdale's, which we had a lot of thoughts about. So let's move to the next plaza because I'm pretty sure people have visited the next location. So this is the plaza at 5454 Wisconsin, which is the one with the Starbucks. It's a really long linear plaza, if you can zoom in. And one of the things that's notable about it is that it steps down from the street a bit, which isn't unusual in Friendship Heights because the topography is quite challenging. And so you either have to step up or step down at a lot of buildings. And this plaza, as you can see in the middle, it's quite active right in front of the Starbucks. And I'm sure people have been to the Starbucks and sat at those tables. And we see people sitting there all the time. But other than the Starbucks, the plaza is just totally desolate. Even though there are these cute tables, there's never anyone sitting in them. What do you guys think about this plaza? This occupies a pretty significant amount of space on Wisconsin. And you know that this building isn't going anywhere. But there are lots of things that can be done to sort of improve the plaza. And curious if anyone here does use the plaza, if you do go to this building a lot, if you visit the pharmacy that's there, you know, or the urgent care or the Starbucks, have you ever sort of spent any time in the plaza, or is it just it's just not, I mean, it's not inviting except at the Starbucks. And so wondering if anyone has any thoughts about things that could improve this space, because it is quite a big space along Wisconsin. We had a lot of requests, I will say, for shade in this plaza from the June 11th event. So I don't know if shade resonates with anybody. Yeah.
As someone who's had been there as a patient and taken elderly people there as patients, I think just throwing it out there, a kind of circular driveways. I hate to say more road, but if there were a way to kind of make it easier to drop off patients in the front there, especially those who are, you know, have challenges related, might need a wheelchair or a walker. Yeah. That might be a constructive use of that space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely there's accessibility issues here. I hear that. Especially if you're trying to go to the front door from the street. And somebody said they needed more plantings. Okay, those are good thoughts. We're going to keep, people can keep putting things in the chat. I want to make sure we get to talk about the SAC site. So let's keep moving on down. And we'll go to the SAC site. So there's one board here, and it's really, you can zoom in a bit so we can see the images. So the images on the left are the existing photos. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with what this site looks like. It is a very, very long site. And so it's basically a parking lot with the Saks building. And the way it's zoned today, you really can't do anything with this because the parking lot is zoned for single family houses, which is an unlikely scenario here and not something that, you know, anyone's been interested in doing for the past who knows how many years. This is the site that the sector plan is looking at very seriously as a future redevelopment site, which means that the plan will look at zoning and land use and other kind of urban design recommendations to figure out what could be here in the future. And it is a huge site with a tremendous amount of opportunity. But this conversation today, we will at some point in the future have a conversation about the development. But here we want to talk about that extension of the Wisconsin Avenue street experience. What kind of sort of street experience do we want to have along this super long block? Do we want just more retail storefront like the collection with more, you know, with some entrances to buildings and more retail the whole way? Do we want to park along this street front? There are some great parks in this country that are in cities that border busy streets. If you move over a bit, Vivi, we can show some of the other precedent images on the right. We just picked a few sort of images of kind of great street fronts that we found of different types. Do we want wider seating, wider areas of the sidewalk with lots of different kinds of seating and plants so it kind of feels like a linear open space? Do we want this to be a gateway opportunity that says welcome to Friendship Heights when you come down Wisconsin from the north? There are just so many opportunities here. And so, but it's you know, there's kind of tons of different suggestions that people have made. And that's something that we wanted to sort of think about here today, is to say, you know, what we have about 3 minutes left and we're going to spend it on Saks. you know, how would you like to see that Wisconsin Avenue continue? Right now, you walk those 2 blocks from the metro, particularly if you're on that side, you're on the east side, you have mostly a retail frontage on the collection that's got some plazas in between it and some breaks in that fabric, and then you get to Saks. And so imagine if there was something else there, like what would you want to keep passing along their way? What would you want to encounter along Wisconsin in a new experience? So there's no wrong answers here.
Sorry, I keep jumping in, and please tell me if I'm. But I'd love to see like a farmer's market, like if you're familiar with the one in Los Angeles, just something that's enclosed where there can be some permanent spaces, but you can also have rotating things that come in and out, like on weekends or something like that. But that kind of more accessible kind of space with more variety and diversity rather than the collection, which feels very much geared towards a more wealthier clientele.
Thank you. We have like 2 minutes left until they pop us out of here. So I like seeing people are put some other comments in the chat. Thank you for the comment about the benches. And yes, that urgent care, that's a great comment. Thank you. Comments about the retail is fine and appropriate. And I think, and you can continue to put comments in the chat, even in the main room, because we'll still see all of them and collect them. I guess we probably needed a few more minutes here. So definitely feel free to send us more comments about this if you can. And in about 43 seconds, it will close and send us back. But I really appreciate those of you who participated here, and I appreciate your comments about these spaces. And yeah, it's been great having you with us tonight. And again, you can always send us any comments about any of this, even after this is over, to my email. I'll provide it again to everyone at the conclusion of this meeting.